that is gold does not glitter. Oh, those who wander are not lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fluffenhammer. Roll the music!
Every man lives, not every man truly dies.
Hello everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. It was something slightly different. It's me, it's Adam. No George this week, I'm afraid. But I am not alone here in the bunker as the world around me turns to some form of apocalyptic Nurgle-ridden plague. I've got two manly men, two men in tights, well maybe men in tights, I don't know yet. Mystery men, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hey, that was a good start. Hi, it's Mark from the Sanction Extremis podcast.
Hi, and it's Jackson from the same podcast, but I'd say Sanction Extremis. But
is this like a you say tomato,
we're
I
on the
say
fence
tomato?
about that one. But yeah, indeed. Or if we wanted to get super 40k about it, it's a Bowden or Bowden
I always say
kind of
Bowden.
situation. Yeah, I don't know. I can't decide. And then I watched, I don't know if it was Voxcast or there was something he was on, and he said, I just like not telling people, so no one actually knows. So yeah, thanks. But yeah, thanks for having us on, Adam. It's really nice to speak to you. And yeah, there is a bit of a plague going on.
No,
but
just huddling round the fire and we'll
get there.
We'll just get the meat roasting. Well, by meat I mean, the other people who may have fallen along the way. But let's not get into that, A little bit of cannibalism does nobody any harm. Well, except the people being eaten. Yeah. I'm going to get myself into legal troubles there. So, what I'd like to do tonight, gentlemen, is kind of talk a little bit about your guys' journey through 40k, the parts about 40k and any Warhammer area that you find interesting, and then just kind of let the conversation roll from there. Because I really like your guys' style of podcasting. You've got these really nicely formatted areas where you point at something, you talk about it, and then you're on to the next thing. And it's so easy to listen to you guys. There's a lot of podcasts out there in the Warhammer communities which are you have to be of a certain mindset. You have to have a certain depth of knowledge to get into, and you guys, you just kind of throw out this stuff willy-nilly. It's just like, oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
100% casual. Yeah, thanks for the kind words, man. I mean, I think when we started, we're just used to sitting, painting, and just listening to podcasts or audiobooks, and then one day Mark just sort of said to me, well, we could do that, like, why not? So we did. But I think when it comes to, like the minutia of 40k rules and things, I don't have a clue. Mark does, but that is not my forte at all. So I think, Mark, you could probably do an episode
you
talking
say
about
that,
rules,
I mean,
couldn't you? But
I know the rules, and you make it sound like I'm some sort of like tactical whiz and know like the ins and outs, but I think I just understand the rules and you don't, and that's the difference. But the thing is, you're like a clever bloke, and I think sometimes the rules don't really like blend into your mind quite as easily as they do. I think it's just because I sort of digest so many bat reps and read so much stuff that I kind of just absorb it. And and I remember knowing how to play from when I first started, that it's kind of not too like different from then to now. If anything, it's easier. So I've just got I seem to have a really useless skill for being able to pick up rule sets really easy. I can't do anything else. That's my only talent. So we don't like massively focus on like tactics or anything like that. We are very generally quite casual players. I mean, we like to look at the stat lines and decide what's good and what we want to paint and stuff. But for us, we're very like rule of cool. Like if a unit looks good, we'll include it in our armies. We always like to name our characters like proper deep level geeky shit. Like But I get really put off by. I've seen some competitive YouTube channels and podcasts, and there's no like love put into their miniatures. It's just like a way to win, and I mean that's a totally legitimate way to play. And if that's your thing, then go for it. But we're very much that narrative, and because I mean like there's such a wealth of knowledge and lore, and like why would you not use it in your games? Yeah, otherwise you might as well just be using tokens. It just seems mad that you wouldn't use the wonderful setting that 40k is in your games.
Absolutely. I mean, there were games back in the day that I remember. The Hive Fleet did some of the really old Epic games. They were all counter based, and they were real heavy rule sets. To the point where I remember trying to have a go at one that came in White Dwarf. It was a Tyranid attack on one of the Elder Craft worlds. And even though it was in White Dwarf, it was counter-based, and I just kind of looked at it and went, nope, this isn't for me. Where's the fun in building stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the criticisms I saw on the... what was it? So we got lockdown. Everyone's shut in. No one can really play 40k or any tabletop stuff. And that tabletop simulator came out on Steam. Now, I didn't have any interest in it because the only computer I've got is a MacBook, and they don't run games well at all. So I ignored it. But I saw a lot of people were saying it's good to be able to look at the rules and everything and have it set up to get that experience. But at the same time, you're not getting the Warhammer experience because you don't have the ownership of any of the models or the terrain or anything, and it just doesn't have the same kind of feel to it. You need that tactile thing, and being able to get down and looking at like line of sight and just getting really involved in the game. You can't do that as much. So I totally get what you mean, especially if it's just tokens, because you could play 40k with just loads of bits of card with unit names on it. But
I think one of the biggest parts of the hobby for me is customizing the army. You whether it's something as simple as picking the paint scheme that you want to do, right the way through to what I do, which is chop the entire army up into tiny little pieces and start rebuilding from scratch. Because I'm insane. And I've been doing it with Kill Team. And, oh, good God, bad ideas. But part of that is that it's your army. And I think that is a huge part of what makes the hobby an interesting thing. It makes it completely different to playing computer games or even sort of computer RPGs or things like that, because it is entirely yours.
Yeah.
The baseline may not be, but everything that happens after that baseline is yours. It's entirely up to you what you do with it.
Yeah, it's a great sandbox, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got this wealth of narrative fiction to draw back on, and it.
Yeah, and even if like you were going to use net listings to build an army, you've still had to build it, and you still get the choice of painting it and stuff. I'm not competitive enough to worry about using like net lists, but I think there's still that degree of ownership, even for people who are using, some other means to, pick what kind of troops they're having. But I mean, me and Mark, I'm speaking.
I'll just correct you
if
you say something wrong.
Really sorry. Okay. So Mark was Warhammer a lot more than I was. So I sort of played a bit when I was like, I don't know, between sort of 10 and 13, but I never really understood the rules or anything, whereas Mark was a bit more into it. But we both kind of fell out of it, and then the next hobby we both really got into together was Magic the Gathering. And that the one thing with that was there is no in-depth lore. Like, there's lore written for it, but it's written purely as an add-on. It's not part of it. You don't need to know anything. And although you could make your own like deck of cards, you don't have the same kind of ownership as you do with 40k or any tabletop war game. So I mean, I recently, like, I really wanted to get an airbrush set up, so I just sold all my Magic cards, and I don't regret it at all. I really don't, because you don't have, there's just not that involvement in it. Like, when we got back into 40k, I didn't have any sort of hobbies or anything going on. I used to play guitar, but I got really bad RSI, so I had to stop. And I was just looking for something to fill that like creative hole. And I just looked at 40k and I just decided, yeah, I'm just going to let that consume my soul. And it has done. And that's it now. Like, every morning, you know, drive to work, like, I have, you know, if I've got an audiobook on the go, or for example, when you had your Tales from Vigilus series going on, you know, I was just blazing through those on the way to work and stuff. And it's such a good thing to keep your mind occupied with. And I just love the setting and the lore and the preposterousness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean? Like, just how ridiculous everything is. I'm just super into it, and I don't think there's anything like it.
There's about 50 things like it, but 40k is all of those 50 things melded together. You know, the closest thing that there is to 40k is sort of old 70s and 80s Judge Dredd in 2000 AD, which even then they've gone down very divergent paths now. They don't really have those links anymore. It's like, have you ever read something called Nemesis the Warlock? Right. If you ever get the chance to read a comic by Pat Mills called Nemesis the Warlock, I recommend it, because you're going to go into that and you're going to go, oh, this is Rogue Trader. Because it is. It's Rogue Trader.
Oh, right.
It's 110% Rogue Trader, but it's not. But it is. It's one of the weirdest experiences. It's a really great comic. But you can tell that there was a lot of people working across different ideas at the same time.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things, like, now with 40k's its own beast now, but when they started, especially when me and Mark have looked back through our White Dwarfs and stuff, you can totally see that sort of, well, I'm going to say 90%, and I'm going to stick with it. I think about 90% of it is just built off pop culture references. And so looking back, like you're saying about like an older comic or something, you're going to see those references more, whereas now, 20, 30 years later, they've evolved into their own thing. Like with the Tyranids, for example, like when you look at the old stuff, it's like Space Hulk. You're like, okay, so Alien. But now the Tyranids, like, they've had that time to really build the lore around it and give it its own feel. So I guess they don't have the same IP issues that they did with fantasy, where orcs became Aurochs and... Oh, we won't go.
I've always
down that
said,
path.
since Age of Sigmar kicked off, I don't have a problem with the changing of the names, and it's purely down to the fact that at this point in time, people need to stop ripping off Tolkien. We are so far beyond another group of heroes having a fetch quest that because that's been fantasy for 60 years now. You know, it's the same kind of story again and again and again and again. And I think if you can move your IP away from that in some way, do it, because it's beyond ridiculous now. You know, although I did recently discover that orc is actually the old Celtic word for pig. So neither did I until I was looking for Celtic words for pig. Don't ask me why.
As Jackson was saying about like building on the lore for 40k, I think AOS is kind of needs a bit of time to do that as well, because they were starting from scratch, and I think they did, for a business and IP point of view, they did, as much as it's painful for those people that were into fantasy, like that they had to kind of ditch it because it wasn't theirs. It was just a bastardization of Tolkien, and you've still got some of those, you know, you've still got orcs and dwarves and things like that, but they've sort of given themselves the creative space to make something that's kind of unique to them. And I think, the lore is was originally a bit hashed together, but the more they've got time to work on it, it's like 40k. Like originally the fluff of that was a bit ropey, but now it's had time to develop and become really great. And I saw a really good tweet the other day about from Aaron Dempsey Bolan, where he's talking about Primaris stuff and people saying that, Primaris lore's a bit jank, and he's pretty much making the same argument. He said, give it time, the lore will change, it's a fluid thing, and they will fit in like everything else. It's just they've needed to find a way to quickly get them into the setting, and then and things will change. I mean, it's not as if you're writing it. People get irate about it as if it's real history, and it's like you have to kind of take a step back and go, it's fucking made up. They can do what they want. Doesn't matter, as long as they sort of like consistent with it at the end. So I think they just
Well, I mean, that's right. You're absolutely right when it comes to
Adam,
the Warhammer lore and the Age of Sigmar lore. The Warhammer lore is built on Tolkien, Lovecraft, and Moorcock.
Yeah.
In the same way that 40k is built pretty much entirely off Dune, with 2000 AD thrown in there.
Yeah.
Come at me, bro. It's true. But what Warhammer became later on isn't as much the setting; it's the feeling.
Yes.
That's what people are upset about losing. It's not they're sad to see the back of. I mean, let's be honest. Who here is really sad to see the lack of Prague or Kislev? Does it mean anything to you? Not particularly. I get sad about the fact that things like the Zotes in Warhammer Fantasy Battle have vanished. The Fimir have vanished. That's where I'm coming from, because I'm an old fucking man. So to have it completely change again, it hasn't affected me as badly as I thought it might, because at the end of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, it was dire. It was painful.
Mark? Go for it, mate, because that's the thing, Adam. I don't have any background with original Warhammer Fantasy, but Warhammer Fantasy was Mark's first love, and I remember him explaining to me what the end times was, and I didn't have any attachment to fantasy at all, and I wasn't even playing tabletop games. And I remember him telling me when we were driving somewhere, and I said, no, man, go on, tell me, like, get into it. And he explained it in depth, and I was like, how dare they? They did it so badly. I think it wasn't so much, I guess, what's been lost. It was just the way it was handled.
So many like beloved characters just like killed
decades
off
of lore, and
I think like I remember I kind of was I didn't buy the End Times books as they came out, but I was listening to podcasts at the time, like doing them from start to finish, like reading through them and being like, fucking hell, he's dead. That empire's destroyed, and that race doesn't exist anymore. And I'd be like, well, they're sort of dismantling this setting that I really like. And then and I thought, oh, it's going to be pretty different from now on. Now they've done the End Times. I did not expect them to fucking just go delete, starting again. And I was like, and I got to the Archeon one at the end, and it's like, they just the world's gone. I was like, you fucking what? Like it was so like entrenched in my. I really like the setting, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it was the feel of it. It wasn't the fact it was dwarves and orcs. It was the art, the models that it was the feeling of it, the gritty, the grim. It's grim dark fantasy, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, it's boots in mud fantasy, and you don't get a lot of boots in mud fantasy. Even Conan isn't really, feet in mud. It's there's a lot more high fantasy to it. I will say that the End Times did two things that I love. Three things actually that I loved a bit. One, they brought Nagash back, and Nagash is everyone's favourite Skeletor stand-in.
He's good.
He's even better in AOS now because he is full-blown Saturday morning cartoon villain. He's just great. They did that bit where the Skaven found a Eldar ship, which is one of the weirdest things. Is why this goes nowhere. This plot thread has gone nowhere. Why? And then thirdly, my favourite thing, they dropped the moon on the lizard men.
Yeah, they did. They brought the moon down, didn't they?
Yeah. So the only people that came out of the end times well, I think, are Thanquol and the Skaven, because they did amazing. But I think the biggest problem, I think, is that as much as I love AOS, and I'll put my hand up and say I freaking adore AOS. I've played Warhammer since like 2nd and 3rd edition. I love AOS. I think I'm allowed to say that Warhammer's time had passed. AOS is the next thing forward. But I do think that they missed a trick by not turning it into a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting, because that could have been something amazing. It's something completely and utterly unlike anything that's on the market. Same races, but everything's gone, everything's destroyed. It is literally the world rebuilding from scratch.
Yeah, that would have been really good.
It's basically an entire world of Mordheim. That's it.
You read my mind, man. I was going to say like Mordheim, but on a world scale.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I think they should have maybe gone, but
I hadn't ever considered that, and that ticks so many boxes for me because I never played Mordheim, but I love that like dark gothic setting. It just looks so good, doesn't it? And yeah, there aren't any really. There's no post-apocalyptic.
No.
Like you said, boots and mud kind of fantasy stuff. Like, yeah, you should have just sent them a letter.
You see, I could have done that, or I could do what I'm actually doing, which is working on something myself, which I'm hoping to have out by the end of the year. So don't steal my idea, or I'll come to your house. Just sit in the bushes outside, sharpening a knife.
So what? Are you working on a book, or are you working on?
I don't want to get into too much
be
detail
like a
yet,
Kickstarter thing?
It's so early on.
Oh, I think. Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just thinking perhaps you were too modest to give yourself a shameless plug on your own podcast, but I was going to fully encourage you to do that. But yeah, I understand if you want to sort of keep it a bit quiet.
I've had in my head for about a year and a half, and I started putting it together end of last year. So now I've got the beginnings of it. So I need to go back through and redraft it, and then start working on making it into something, and start doing some rules testing and bits and bobs like that. So I'm hoping by the end of the year I'll have something that I can then start looking at getting out into the world.
Sweet. Wow, man, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, so, sweet.
See, I kind of feel like I get there with like the ideas, and I get the things I want to do, but then I get to that stumbling point where I've got so much I could do that I don't do anything.
Yeah,
so I get kind of like there's too much to do, so I just go, oh fuck it, I'll just sit here and just look at my phone. So, but I can see what you're saying. Like sometimes if you're like yourself and you get round to doing it, and you've got all these things going, you can be sort of overly critical and overwhelmed in a different way with what you produce, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is the idea. I want to build a world. I want to build the races. I want to build a skirmish, a rule set, and a RPG light system to go with it. So yeah.
Wow.
All by yourself.
Yep.
All by yourself.
You know, you say it sounds like it's a bit much, but you know.
Yeah, consider our interest peaked.
But I mean, it's literally 2 hours of a night. Baby's in bed. I've got nothing to do. I'm not really a TV watcher these days. So it'll be shove a podcast or an audiobook on or radio on, and they just sit with the laptop and just start typing.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, man, I've found TV's totally dead to me now. Like, and I used to be a bit of a gamer, and I can't remember the last time I even played like a video game, because if I've got time, I'd be thinking, I could put another base coat on that, or I could be reading that next page of whatever book I'm on. Like I said, it's just consumed my life. You've actually hit the nail on the head. I'm totally fine with that. You know,
I realised a couple of years ago that I was done with video games completely. Purely because every time I would play something, in the back of my head, I was thinking, I could be doing something productive. I could be doing something for the YouTube channel. I could be doing something for one of the projects I was writing for. I could be doing something over here. I could be doing a podcast. And yeah, I am 110% behind you on that one.
Nice. Yeah, and I think the other thing was I used to love drinking alcohol, and now I don't know if it's because I've hit 30 and beyond, and I've had a couple of the 2-day hangovers, which I'm not a fan of. But I'll be thinking now, like, I only get the weekend, and if I've got a hangover, I'm not going to be able to sit there and do edge highlighting without screwing it up. So I just stopped drinking, and I haven't missed it because I'm just too busy trying to be productive. Like, I've got too high standard as well, I think. which is a problem for me because I don't have the experience to back it up. I'm used to seeing all these like awesome pictures on Twitter and Instagram of people's paint jobs, and I'm thinking like, oh God, how would I do that? But you know, I still need to actually paint for a couple of years until I'm up to that. Well, I say a couple of years, probably a couple of.
You've made a lot.
decades
You've
if I'm
made a lot
at
of
that
progress, though, haven't you?
level. But yeah,
From that starting point.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I think when I started, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it helps though that the first thing I tried painting was Imperial Fist.
What?
Just getting that yellow right.
Why?
Is like, yeah, yeah. So because I don't know. We were in Warhammer World. Mark was like, it was his birthday, and we went up there. And I was thinking like, which chapter am I going to pick? And I just really liked the Imperial Fists. I liked the ballsiness and I just like the look of them really. But then, yeah, trying to paint yellow.
No, it's Satan's own colour.
Not fun at all. Yeah, I know. I see some of the stuff Chapter Master Valrak does, and he gets models done so quickly. I'm thinking, how have you got that yellow so bang on? But yeah, I just gave up and did Crimson Fist.
Blue and red.
Because it's just... Yeah, it's going to be a bit easier. I think even if I did, like originally before I saw the Wolfen and stuff, I was interested in Space Wolves, but I kind of went off them a little bit because of the whole werewolf.
Yeah.
I didn't like those sculpts, and I didn't like these guys in like, you know, tons of power armor riding around on wolves. It just didn't seem, it seemed a bit much. But that one shoulder pad that's yellow, I think that would have that would have been enough to put me off if I started. So luckily I had something that was fairly codex compliant, and yeah, all I've had to do is like get different
Have
decals.
you ever painted with army painter colours?
So, I have only used the what have I got?
Yeah,
one of the metallics, the gunmetal, and I think one of the whites. But I found them very
watery.
Very.
Really?
No, I found them too thick, to be honest. I was going to say viscous, but that sounds a bit dodgy. Yeah, I've got Army Painter matte white, and I've tried using that a few times. And
have you got any agitators in it?
Get on with it. No, I haven't. Just because I used to try, but I mean, I ended up. I've got a bunch of Vallejo or Viejo, which I think is how you meant to say it. I've got a bunch of that and most of the Citadel stuff, and that everything's got an agitator in it. But yeah, I should try that with the Army Painter stuff. But I think the problem is the bottles are so full that unless you squidge a bit of it out, there's not enough room for the agitator to really get working.
Use a little bit first in order to get the agitators in. The only reason I ask is they do one. I think it's like Moon Yellow or something like that. And if you put that down over the white, like obviously thinned out a little bit, and then use like a Sunburst Yellow or something like that over the top, it really highlights yellow really well. You can do it in 2 coats rather than doing it as like 6 or 7 thin coats. Because I'm with you, I hate painting yellow. It is awful.
Nice.
Awful.
Yeah, and I didn't understand. Like how layer paints are meant to be transparent. And I remember I painted a Marine and I got him looking quite good. And I did a wash before I knew what a pin wash was. So I just covered this guy in Agrax. And what have I done? And then I just sat there putting coat after coat of Irial or Uriel. I don't know how you say that. One of the layer yellows, and you could just see through it every time. And I think I put 6 coats on before I gave up. And then I realised that that paint was meant to be transparent, and I felt pretty stupid. But no, I will definitely take that advice on board, because I've finally got to the point where I don't like so much the comical stuff in 40k, but having orcs and goblins in Age of Sigmar, I'm fully okay with. And I just picked up on Mark's recommendation Zarbag's Gits box, and I've been looking at some of that stuff, and obviously where you get the moon symbol or icon, that's got to be that yellow, and I want that to be yellow. And I was kind of dreading doing it because of how horrible Imperial Fists were to paint.
Contrast might be your friend with that one.
That tip, man.
Doing yellow. Contrast yellow looks pretty good.
Yeah, I've got my Warcry beast guy. Oh crikey, what the hell are they called? You know, in Warcry you've got the Rock Prowler Tusk Lion. It looks like Beastman from He-Man's just down on all fours. just jumping on someone with a sandwich. Yeah, it's hands like,
sandwich?
Are you finished with that sandwich? I'll find you a picture of it.
Video.
But yeah, the main I did with the 3 layers of the contrast yellow, and it is really nice.
Yeah. Which one's that? The Iyanden yellow. Sweet, because I got a pot of that. Cool, I'll try that. Yeah, contrast has been really interesting because some of them don't work and some of them work amazingly well. I think like for doing the like leather pouches and stuff on Space Marines, I'm never going to bother doing anything other than painting on some grey cere or whatever and then just sticking snakebite leather over the top, because you just don't need to put that much effort into those leather pouches, especially because, oh my God, they shouldn't be there. It really bugs me. I think we've talked about this on our podcast before. They've got slightly less dexterous hands than most people because they're encased in like massive bits of ceramite armor, but they've got little leather pouches on where they keep their ammo. How do they get into those little leather pouches? And I'm sorry I'm going off on one, but every time I listen to an audiobook involving Space Marines, they will say something has been mag-locked to their armor, or he mag-locked his pistol to his armor. I'm thinking, oh, that's funny, because all the sculpts have got little leather pouches on, which are going to either break, like corrode because of some kind of horrible alien acid that's just in the air or something. Oh, come on, Games Workshop. Get rid of the leather stuff. Make it easier for me to paint them. Make everything the same colour.
If you go back to that first and second multi-part Space Marine thing, everything was mag-locked on. It just fitted onto the legs. And then they got rid of it and replaced it with these little fiddly pouches, which I am sure that a Dark Angel cannot fit under the robe. Certain of it.
No. I think, thinking about it, there might be a reason why, because I remember when I got the 3rd edition, was it the Battle Force that came with the Destroyed Ruins and the Land Speeder and the Terminators? I got that and built them myself when I was like 10 or something. And when I got back into 40k, Mark said, look, give me your old models and I'll sort them out and we can prime them and you can have a go at painting them. And
Mate,
where did you find
favourite bit was
Mark?
with the rack of missiles for the missile launcher was stuck to the bottom of one of their legs. As if that was the best place for it. And grenades stuck to pauldrons. Mate, it was a wealth of 10-year-olds sticking together. But I mean, we all did it. We all made stupid things. Oh yeah. When you first got your first box of Space Marines, so
not my first one, but maybe I remember doing a chapter because my brother started playing Orcs, and I wanted to make my own chapter as a way to fight his Orcs. So I, God, you can tell that I was like 13 at the time, 12, 13. So I made an entire Space Marine chapter based on the Todd McFarlane comic character Spawn.
Oh, right, okay.
So the big billowy cape and
please tell me there is photographic evidence of this army.
But what I did to make it slightly different is I put the shoulder pads on the opposite way, so they were long ways rather than the normal way, if that makes sense.
Why wouldn't you?
It gets worse, and that's where I put all of the grenades and the missiles and everything. So you just had these poorly painted, black armoured Space Marines with these white stripes, green eyes, and Spawn thing with big red capes, with just like combat knives in places you could never reach.
Brilliant! Wow.
Oh, they were terrible.
Brilliant.
Oh God, no way.
Tournament legal.
I think one of them actually had a pair of bolters sticking out of one of the things. So it looked like he didn't need to use his hands to shoot. Yeah.
Well, he had bolters stuck out of his pauldrons.
It's just
awesome.
I didn't really think about it until maybe I was 20, 25 or something, when I started making Protoss out of Tau and Groot figures. That it's not that once you start gluing stuff together, you start getting inspiration. It's that when you start gluing stuff together in a non-ventilated room, you get as high as a kite, and the ideas just start flowing crazily.
And then you get pauldrons that are also
yeah.
grenade
It's just
harnesses.
fantastic.
Yeah, why not?
I remember I had a leftover torso from the RTB01 set, if you ever see that one. So I just stuck that into the 3rd edition set.
Yeah,
He had
yeah.
this tiny body and massive arms.
Nice. Oh yeah, because thinking about it, like we're really lucky now because all the Primaris stuff is kind of interchangeable, isn't it, with the older Marines? But that, not so much with original Space Marines and
there's
third
a
edition.
really weird size difference in them. Not as much size, but proportions. The proportions are much different. Right, use English. The proportions are really different. They're a lot more human now than they were back then. But I think that's just because they're all computer sculpted.
Yeah, I think when looking back at some of the stuff, like people I've seen recently this week, it seems to be on Twitter, everyone is showing the really old dreadnoughts and saying how ridiculous they are. But then I was thinking, but someone had to like sculpt that by hand, and prior to that, it was a bit of cardboard with the Orc dread on it. So it was like, for the time, that was probably quite good. But I mean, I wasn't into 40k at the time, so I don't know.
Are
if
you
that was
talking
just
the
terrible
first one, the really rounded dreadnought? Yeah.
The one with the weird face on it.
Great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it? And I mean, I would take that over. Mark, what was the
Space?
what was that Space Marines one you
Murder
said?
Fang.
Murder
With the fucking
Fang.
angry face in the middle.
Really good dreadnought. Yeah, like totally exposed. Like, you know, the whole point of the dreadnought is they're interred in this so they can keep fighting. But the Murder Fang, his
I always
face
found
is
it
just
really
there to
weird
get shot. So
that there's an actual
I'd
body
definitely
in there.
take the old
'Cause I
dread.
never thought there was a body. I thought the just brain and nervous system got shoved into it.
Well, it depends how much of a body's left, doesn't it? But I've seen some pictures, and it's been like just a torso and a head and stuff. But really grimdark. Yeah, I think, like you were saying about like Boots and Mud fantasy, that, and I hate to say quintessential, but there's something quintessentially English about 40k and like European about it. That, you know, like if you look at with the kind of historic fantasy stuff like The Witcher, for example, that's got that same really grimy, horrible, you know, you're seeing the lives of like the peasants and stuff, and you know, it's not the high fantasy where you've got the nice like elven cities and things, and that's the kind of stuff that 40k does really well as well, because you've got, like, for example, the guy in the Dread who's having a really bad time, and then they're also dropping in loads of stuff about what's happening in Imperial society, like the 1,000 psychers executed every day. There's all that just horribleness that kind of gets I don't know if it's glossed over, or it's just, maybe it's one of those things with like a more American kind of fantasy where they go, well, no one wants to see things that are miserable. That won't, you know, there's no market for that, but we want that. We're, you know, I want it to be miserable. I don't want fun.
See, I think that 40k, when viewed in the right light, it takes such an extreme viewpoint of being grimdark that at times it is absolutely hilarious. I mean, you take like a character like Fabius Bile,
definitely.
We call him on this show Fabulous Bill, and you look at what he's actually doing. Yeah, he is a eugenicist who is constantly reworking people's genetic structures. You know, and that's not good. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that he does, it's really not good. But because the character is so utterly out there are times where it's hilarious. You know, the spider comes into the room, and the moment he turns up in any kind of novel, everyone just goes, oh dear, that's this is going to go bad quickly.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like, some of the stuff is just so horrible that you have to sort of see the funny side of it. And it's like with the, I think I posted about it the other week on Twitter. It was like, I was reading about the, God, it's one of the handbooks they give to the Imperial Guard. And it was like, if you don't present this at any time when requested by a superior officer, you'll be executed on the spot. And I was just thinking about what that meant. And you can have these people who've like come from some planet which was doing just fine. Then all of a sudden, the Imperium turns up, takes all the sort of, you know, strong adolescent and like grown-ups like crack on, you're now in the guard. They're fighting these horrible aliens they've never ever like even conceived of before, and their friends are getting torn apart around them. They get blown up and they just about survive, and like a couple of days later they're like pulled from the rubble and they're like missing an arm, and they're like they've been drinking rainwater for, like just to keep going. And then the commissar says, have you got your Munitorum manual?
Yeah.
No. Bang. And that, you know, that's it. And you think, Christ, you know, but that's like the reality of 40k, isn't it? That's why I guess some of the commissars like Gaunt are kind of special because they are a bit more human. But I do just like the ridiculousness. It's like they've picked up historical things and then they've just taken a load of drugs and turned them up to 10. And
I mean, the commissariat is such a ridiculous idea. These stalwart bulwarks against, you know, corruption getting into the hearts of men, to the point where if you even look like you're scared, you are going to get shouted at, and if you don't instantly stop looking scared, you're going to get shot. It's, you know, there's I've mentioned it so many times. But there's a book called 13 Hours, and it's one of my favourite 40k books. It's quite a short one, and it's got such a sense of black humour to it. The entire book happens because a regiment of Imperial Guard gets sent, instead of going back to their homeworld for some respite, they get sent to a orc-infested front line. And it's all because a bureaucrat forgot to carry a wand. And they just get wiped out. And you've just got this one guy surviving, and nobody wants to know his name because he has to survive 13 hours before anyone will ask his name. Because it's not worth knowing your name if you... Yeah. Once you pass the 13 hours, then they'll ask you your first name. It's like, this is...
15 hours.
Who's that by?
15 hours is the name. Mitchell Scanton, that's his name.
Yeah, that's a book that's come up before. I've seen on like must-read 40k lists. Yeah, that's quite a bit. And yeah, because it's 15 hours is as long as you're expected to last, pretty much. Yeah, it reminds me of the 20 Minuters from Blackadder. Yeah, it's kind of that kind of humour. And I think they've kind of, going on that Imperial Guard, kind of taking the piss out of them a little bit. I love that the Warhammer community is doing that regimental standard, like magazine for the guardsmen, and it's satirical, and they're taking the piss out of it, and I think that's really great. So, and then they obviously see the dark humour behind it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, have you read much of the Cyphers Kane books?
I've listened to the first one actually. Because he's that kind of like, everyone thinks he's a hero, but really he just wants to just survive in any way possible.
But he's actually quite heroic, but he just doesn't see it because all he's thinking is, "I want to get out of here."
Yeah, he just thinks he's a charlatan, doesn't he? Basically,
yeah.
I keep seeing that Caves of Ice, I think it is audio drama, and I've got an Audible credit, but I don't know whether to use it or not.
Anything with Cyphers Kane is
because
great.
I haven't heard it yet, and I was a bit sweet.
Yeah.
Because some of the audio dramas are a bit hit and miss. Like I saw they did the top 10 recently, and there was a couple on there that I've listened to and I thought were awful.
No.
I'm not going to say which ones, but yeah, usually with the audiobook, as long as the narrator is good, then you're going to be all right. But sometimes with the audio dramas, I feel they're a little bit rushed. Like it's been, you know, they've contracted it out to someone and just said, like, you've got to mention all of these words at least once. And
yeah, and I think because audiobooks obviously tend to be audio dramas tend to be shorter. They feel a bit you feel a bit worse when you've spent an Audible credit on it or paid for one, and it's shorter than an audio book and ends up being pretty cack. So it is a bit of a pill to swallow. Although I did see on Audible now they're doing audio drama collections, and I picked up the Astartes one, and there was two that I'd already heard before, but most of them I hadn't heard, and they were really good. They've obviously sort of picked the cream of the crop. There's one that sticks out in my mind where it's a Black Templar Dreadnought, and it's basically his stream of consciousness from being woken up to going down to the battle and how that plays out. And there's so many epic moments in that. But then equally, I've heard audiobooks. I think Jackson picked one up when he first got back into it, and I listened to it as well. And I just felt sorry for him that he'd spent money on it. It was so short. It was boring. These audio dramas. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say which one that was because I don't want to specifically slag off an author or anyone. But yeah, that wasn't great. I've still got that on CD, and but that was before I found
so
Audible,
much cheaper doing it through Audible.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, in that. But also, we're really lucky because we get people like yourself, Adam, and
yes.
I don't know if you ever listened to a Border Prince, but there's a bunch of people that do their own, put their own time in and doing these really great narrations of shorter stories, and I think there seems to be more because you're a fan doing it. There seems to be it's delivered more passionately, you don't get that. Some of the Horus Heresy books I've got, and I haven't been able to listen to them because there's a couple of guys that do the narration that I just can't get on with. It's just not delivered with any kind of passion. And then you listen to something like the Night Lord series, and I can't remember. Is it Andrew Wincott? I think it might be that does the narration for that. He's so good, and I think they need to have Black Library need to have a higher standard of their people doing the narrations, and I wonder if that's why you don't get. I don't know if any of your stuff's monetized when it comes to narrative things. No, because then I guess they'd say, look, this is copyrighted work and stuff. But I think even if it was monetized, a lot of the fan made stuff is very good. And I know you had Colin from Cold Open Stories on recently. When I listened to the Sisters one, I can't remember what it's called now. When all the lights have gone out, he'd got some really good talent in on that, and it was just it shouldn't be to a point where it's better than Games Workshop, and it is. It's the Astartes series on YouTube. My friend, I've got a friend who moved to Sweden and he works doing video game development, and he has no interest in 40k. And he sent me that saying, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've watched the whole thing. It's really good." He couldn't get over it. It was one person. So
there's a YouTube series I really enjoy watching. It's called CGI Artists React, and it's the Corridor Crew, and they did
I
thing
watched
on
that one.
Astartes, and they were breaking it right down and sort of going, "That is something that you don't see in films. What's it doing here? That's." They're talking about the weight when people are running and how difficult that is to do. And he's like, you've just made this even better than it already was.
Yeah. I know, it's so good, isn't it? And I love, I think the last one, it was a little bit, not slow, but it wasn't as much action. But when the I don't know if it's someone from the Inquisition or someone's there, and the Space Marines kill them. That was so brutal that 5 seconds of violence was enough for the whole 6 or 8 minute video.
One of my favourite things about that was maybe 2-3 days after that came out, somebody had taken screen grabs of it. So you had the Inquisitor in the first screen grab with Erebus written underneath him. And then you had a loyal Marine shooting him. And then you had a traitor Marine punching him in the head. And it's just that's brilliant. Because anyone who knows me knows how much I would like somebody to space Erebus. I need him to be thrown into space. I need bad things to happen to him.
I can't think of a character that I hate more than Erebus, and I don't feel that this is a fictional setting. I shouldn't have actual resentment in my heart for a fictional character, but then there's Erebus. And a close second would be Fulgrim. I really don't like Fulgrim, but Erebus, oh my god, yeah. There's Chaos Marines that I like, and then there's Erebus. He's that bad, and I always used to be. Before I started listening to the Black Legion and the Night Lord stuff by Aaron
Bowden.
Dembski. Bowden. Either
it's
either.
written Bowden. It's pronounced.
Yeah, before I listen to those. Yeah. Oh man! But before, like, I was kind of in the mindset that I was really liking the sort of role playing aspect of it, and I was like never going to have anything of the Heretic Astartes in my house. I was like that much a loyalist, and then when I listened to those books, I was just like, wow, you know, they had so much character, and they weren't just mindless, you know, deviants. And I got into them to the point where, you know, I if I was good enough to do the lightning paint jobs, I'd love to have a Night Lord's army, but then Erebus, that whole, you know, that's just too far. Cannot stand him.
Do you know my idea
I'm
for a
fully
short
with you.
story involving the Ordo Kronos? Right. So the idea of the Ordo
please
Kronos
regale
is
me.
the time-traveling Inquisitors.
Is this Mark? Is that what came out in one of the Magos? Mark, what was it? That Eisenhorn anthology you were on?
The Magos. Yeah, what about it?
Yeah. We're talking about time traveling. Oh no, that was the time traveling like camera film or something, wasn't it? Sorry, I digress heavily.
I don't think they've ever actually used the Ordo Kronos in anything. It's a throwaway line in like 3rd edition 40k. I think it's in like 5th edition as well. Okay. There is an entire army of Inquisitors that is entirely based around stopping people from time traveling. Basically, I think it's to try and cut off the Legion of the Damned. It's like stop them from whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
But my idea is that an Inquisitor goes back in time, just walks up to Erebus just before he does anything, throws him in a space lock, shuts the door, fires him into space. Story ends. Yeah, it's just the heresy
Happy
never
ever
happens.
Make it canon. Do it.
Yeah.
No, that's a good idea, man. I think that there's enough trials and tribulations we can have without having Erebus. I mean, we've still got the Tyranids and the Orcs to deal with. I mean, even I found listening to the Horus Heresy stuff at the beginning, Horus he's quite a likable guy. You know, I don't even hate him that much. Erebus, you know, like not a fan, but even Horus at the beginning is all right.
I do have
He
to
just
say
gets
that
tricked.
I actually I love Erebus
I mean,
because I hate him so much. I think that's the best way to describe him.
Having. I'm trying to think. Like, if you've got a wrestler that's a really good bad guy, you know they're doing well because you hate them that much. That kind
Erebus
of thing.
is Jake the Snake.
I still hate him. Oh man, what would that make?
Oh, he's Vince
What would
McMahon.
that make the Emperor then? Oh yeah, I was thinking like, is he more of a Randy Savage or is he more of a Ric Flair? But no, I like that.
I'm gonna
Vince
take these
McMahon, 'cause
guys
he's
and I'm gonna
the,
pull them in armor and they will be mine, you army. Yeah.
I think that has to be the first ever like Emperor quote in a Macho Man voice ever.
The thing
Well
is, though,
done.
you'd have to have
Uncle
Stone Cold
Guinness.
Steve Austin playing Horace, just so you could have the Emperor going, "It was me, Austin. It was me all along."
Oh, what, having the glass smash? Yeah.
Uh,
What a great spin-off this could be. I mean, I know they're doing stuff with Marvel.
what you gonna do, brother?
Oh man.
When the Imperium runs wild over you.
Oh, and actually, yeah, thinking about it then, because the I've forgotten his name. No, it's gone out of my head. It's totally gone.
Mark,
quick,
what's your
next
favourite
topic.
thing
Keep
about
it
Erebus?
flowing, Adam. Go on.
My favourite thing about Erebus is that I have to admit I don't know much about him. I haven't dived into the Horus Heresy too much, so I'm deliberately keeping quiet because I can't profess to know too much about him. I know he's word bearers and he's basically the big bad, basically. And
all you ever really need to do is read the first 2 books to get everything you need.
Okay. I just feel a bit overwhelmed with the Horus Heresy because I get the gist, I know what happens, but that I've kind of the point of re-entry for Jackson and I at that point there's so many Horus Heresy books, like unless I can complete it, I don't really want to start it, and it feels a bit insurmountable at the moment. So So yeah, it's on the to-do list, but very far down. But
There's a lot of those books.
yeah, and
There's a lot of those books.
yeah,
I started getting them all in a sale on Audible, just because I'd never gone through all of them. So I thought, right, I'll do them all in order. I'm about just over halfway through now, and I am regretting it. There is more bad than good. Mechanicum may be one of the worst books I've ever read or heard or anything. It's awful. It's not a story. It's not a book. It's just literally nothing but background, but done with characters and as a novel. It's really bad.
Ew.
See, I quite liked. I'm going to go out on a limb. I quite like Mechanicum purely because I thought you said that in a very judgmental way. Are you sure you said you liked that book? I know what you mean. I think I got a bit lost with. There's like some. Was it like some giant robot chasing them, or I can't remember what happens. But there was one bit in it that I thought was very left field, which was going back to like ancient Earth, like history and stuff. But the problem was I listened to that book while I was painting, and I was really conscious that I wasn't taking it in enough, and I wanted to go back and do it properly. But now you've said that,
the thing that gets me about that book is that it keeps edging towards really interesting stuff, like the stuff about ancient Earth, the edges towards what is it to be transhuman and post-human. What do you give up to do that? And it never explores it. It just keeps backing away, and it just infuriates me.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. There has been a couple of misses, but because I've done all of them so far on Audible. I don't know if it's because the narrator hasn't gelled with me. If that makes sense. Like was it the Thousand Suns in the Fulgrim book? The person that did the narration, I couldn't get on with it. So I mean, I laboured through Fulgrim, but I just didn't. The big moments in it just kind of annoyed me. I'm sure if I read it, I would have loved that book, but I just didn't get into it enough. But then there was stuff like, I don't know, the Flight of the Eisenstein I really liked, which was... Yeah. Was that James Swallow? I can't remember who did that one. Yeah, that was really good. And he did the Nemesis one as well, which was quite interesting. The only thing I thought was a bit strange with that was the assassins talking to each other like they're regular people. Because I always think of them as like very, insane.
In the 41st millennium, they are. This is kind
like
of the beginnings of them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I had to keep telling myself. But also, would you say Vindicare or Vindicare?
Yeah.
Yeah, so have I. And the guy keeps saying Vindicare, and I'm like, mate, there's no accent on the E. What are you doing with that? But then, I don't know, maybe Games Workshop told him that's how it's pronounced. So I can't even say Aaron Dembski Bowden's
Aaron Dembski Luxury
correctly, so I'm gonna hold fire on
that's how it's pronounced. One of the things I really like about Eisenstein is the first time a Marine sees a plague Marine. It's probably one of the most horrific things I've ever read in a book, because you've got the weight of what that is already, and as it slowly starts to happen, you kind of get this moment of, oh, okay, that's actually quite horrific. That's not the little fun guy that I've got on the tabletop that I've painted in pink that's running around. That's actually really nasty.
Yeah, and I think. With like Flight of the Eisenstein, me and Mark got the what's the starter box we went halves on? Remind me. There you go. So
do you keep your memory inside Mark's head?
Yeah, this is what I mean. You should see us play a game. I roll dice, and I'm like, I just look at him, and he's like, "Yeah, you want to be getting 5s or 6s?" Oh, okay. But. Like Mark's done, you can see it on our Instagram as well. He's done like a really good job doing the Death Guard, and he's really into them. And I listened to, on Mark's recommendation, Mark.
The Lords of Silence.
What's the book called? Yeah, the Lords of Silence, which is written all in like the present tense and is very, very strange. And I really like that. But yeah, with Flight of the Eisenstein, it's not the, ridiculous, the Festulous whatever name, and the great big gun that spits out like sewer water, and the funny little nurglings. It's really quite grotesque and kind of disturbing, and that's where I thought I was going to hate Garrow, because I'm thinking, oh man, you're Death Guard, and this is when I was like purely 100% loyalist, and I was just waiting for him to do something I didn't like, and then he ended up being a really nice guy, and I'm a big fan of Garrow, big fan, especially with him. That is the book where he stands up to, spoilers, everyone. Yeah. That is the book where he sort of stands up to Rogel Dawn, isn't it? Yeah, and he gets like beaten up by Rogel Dawn. He like takes like punches in the face from a Primarch, because like he's that convicted that he's getting this message to the Emperor, and like Dawn's like pride and everything makes him like, so he can't take this message from this lowly space marine. But really, I mean, Garrow's like he's up there, man. That's a ballsy guy. I really like him, and I think Flight of the Eisenstein was one of the first books that I listened to in Horus Heresy where I was audibly kind of shouting at a few bits. I was getting into it that much. And I just remember being shocked that Dawn was like laying the smackdown on him. I didn't see that coming. But then I suppose it's a Primarch. So, they're not going to take shit from mortals or semi-mortals.
I've just seen the time. It's true what they say. Time flies when you're having fun. About an hour ago, I was going to ask you both a question. So I'm going to start with Mark. Where did you begin then with Warhammer and 40k?
Well, quite a long time ago, actually. I think I was still in primary school, and I was around a mate's house, and his older brother had some 40k figures. I think this is a classic story. We have like someone older who's into it. And I remember seeing in his room he had a little diorama with Tyranids and Space Marines. And I was like, holy shit, what is this? This looks awesome. And he's like, oh, it's a, what called Warhammer. There's a shop in a town near us. And he gave me one of those really old little leaflets that you'd get at Games Workshop. So we're talking like 98, 99.
Yeah.
And I remember taking it. He gave me a copy of one because they obviously gave out loads. And I remember going home and just looking at it all and looking at all the figures. And I remember distinctly they had one side was all fantasy and one side was all 40k, and they had one model to represent each race and a little blurb about them. Yeah. And I remember just, as you do as a kid, when you're a kid, you just stare and read things over and over again. And I remember saying to Mum and Dad, like, this is fucking awesome. Well, not fucking, but this is great. Can I get into this? And they're like, okay. And then I remember my dad took me down to our local Games Workshop. And I remember going in there, and there's these kind of like really excited, kind of like really enthusiastic guys. And they're like, oh, do you want to play a game? What do you want to play? And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, I like fantasy. That was my first love. I went, oh, I like Warhammer Fantasy. And he went, oh, we've got this table set up. I had this lovely, this table, and it was the set where they had Lizardmen versus Bretonians.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And I had a game. I can remember it now. I can still envision the board and the figures. And he took me through a game, and I just was instantly hooked from that moment. And it's never really left me. Like, so then I'd go down every Saturday. They had the big introduction games where they'd all get everyone to play, and it'd be just mad. And so sort of 98, 99, I got into Warhammer Fantasy. Some friends at school got into it as well. And we did the classic thing. You just bought whatever you liked. You painted them up badly, and you you thought you were playing the game right, and then turns out you probably weren't. Rolling dice and just having massive mashups where you'd put all your armies against each other into roughly good and evil, and you would just throw them at each other, and just that would be your game. And absolutely loved it, and started getting White Dwarf, started collecting armies. And this is a time in your life when you don't even really get new figures at like Christmas or on your birthday if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So you collect. It was kind of like the opposite of now, where we're fortunate that we're in a position where we can still buy. We can buy the miniatures we want, but our time to actually play and do hobby is precious. So it's kind of the other way around. So when you were younger, you had loads of time to play, but you didn't have the figures you wanted. You're in that kind of position. So yeah, I did that for a bit, and then did the classic thing where you go to secondary school, and then you think if anyone finds out like that I play Warhammer, they're going to take the piss out of me. So I just kept quiet about it for pretty much most of my time at school, at secondary school, which ironically is where I met Jackson. And then we never really mentioned the 40k thing, did we? Really, Jackson? While we were at school together, it was more music, wasn't it?
I think, with the exception of, I think I swapped you a 3rd edition land speeder for a copied Slipknot CD. I think that's about the only kind of contact we had about it, other than coming around your house once and seeing like that display case that had all your dad's fantasy stuff that he'd painted up. And I just remember being like,
I was lucky that my dad wasn't into the game, but painted as well.
That's cool.
I taught basically everything I know about painting now. I learned of him, and then I haven't really got any better since then. Basically, dry brushing and washes are king, and that's pretty much it. So it was kind of always something that was in my. So Warhammer didn't really leave me. Wasn't really into it while I was just at school, but it was always on the back burner. I always had all the stuff. And then I think it got to sort of in my 20s, and then I started working, and I worked with someone who was into Warhammer and 40k mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember talking to him about it and going, man, I used to be so into that, and I've still got all my stuff, and like I love it, and I should get back into it again. And then I sort of got back into playing Warhammer again and being into it, sort of gradually built up, and then again sort of dropped out of it when I got into Magic: The Gathering. We're talking late 20s now with Jackson, and spent literally a hideous amount of money. But it had an appeal because it was something that I didn't really have to commit too much in terms of time to prep. I didn't have to paint anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it was instant. Like if I wanted a deck, I'd buy it, and I'd be ready to go the next day or whenever it turned up. So there was that bonus to it. And then I got back into. I got friendly with a mate of ours, mate of mine now, Matt, and he was really into Flames of War, so World War II.
Oh yeah.
And I fell for that super hard. It's an amazing game, and
it really is.
I got super into the history. I like history. I did like my A-level history. I've always been into it, so it ticked 2 boxes for me there. And I remember Jackson would come over and play Flames of War with me, just because he likes miniature war games, but he wasn't into playing Warhammer at the time. And then one day I thought, fuck it, let's see what Warhammer's up to at the moment. I looked at 8th edition, because that's where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, fucking hell, they've kind of really done good. Like, they've kind of got rid of all the gumph and all like the bookkeeping and all the complexity, gone back to basics. And I remember watching a video of someone demoing it from Games Workshop at a convention, I think it was. And I just thought, man, this is like, it's still got the 40k flavour, but they've just streamlined it, and it's now fun. And I remember just taking a screenshot of the No Fear box set. And I said, Jackson, do you want to go halves on this? We'll just buy this box set. And fucking look at us now.
Oh, God.
So in a nutshell, that's basically my story. Started as a kid, sort of wobbled in between when I was at school, got back into it in my late 20s, and since getting properly back into it with Jackson, I mirror what he said earlier. It's just sort of engulfed my life in a good way.
Yeah. It's weird how that happened. Something happened about 5 years ago, and I don't know what it was, but a lot of people who did some Warhammer when they were younger all just kind of went, let's see what's going on now.
Yeah.
And we all got back in. The same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like flailing around, and I just saw Age of Sigmar and went, what? Yeah, what? So got into that and then never looked back.
Yeah, and
Got back to painting and it was like, I've missed this so much.
yeah, and I think when you're slightly later on in life, you're kind of, well, it might make it sound like we're all ancient, but do you know what I mean? Like when you've done all you've done all the partying, you've done all the in brackets fun stuff you should be doing, and then you have to say to yourself, what do I actually like doing? And the answer is, I like escapism and not thinking about the real life and painting little men. And you just realise that that's what makes you happy, and then fucking go for it. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that got me with the miniature stuff, you're buying it, building it, painting it, playing. And the amount of money that you spend is so offset by the amount of activity you get with the items. It's ridiculous. I know that there's always the argument that GW stuff is expensive for what it is. It really isn't.
Well, no, I totally agree, and I think you're 100% right when you say the amount of activity you get from it. So you've got 30 quid for a box of, or 35 quid for a box of intercessors. You've got the excitement of waiting for them to come. You've got the building. You've got the painting. You've got the playing. Which, let's be honest, you can play with them for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be, say they, in 10 years' time they get rid of 40k, you can still play it. You're going to have those for the rest of your life. It's not like, Magic the Gathering, where you'd have a card that was expensive for a short amount of time because it was competitive within that standard or that season, and then it would be worth nothing. Whereas that you can actually put a price on how much, those primary intercessors are, but the enjoyment and the use you'll get out of them it goes on for a long, long time, and the immersion and it's just amazing. It's just really good stuff, and I think it does feel expensive, but you can justify that price, I think.
Yeah, I think a really good way of looking at it would be I think it was Tabletop Minions did a video on G-Dub's pricing model.
Love that, man.
Yeah, and he was saying about, and he was right, but he was saying, you can get a box of 20 X troops and they're dirt cheap, but you can get 3 Centurions and they're like $50 or something because you can only run so many of them, so they know you won't buy as many, so they have to charge you more and stuff. And he's right, but then at the same time I think, but it's a company and they have to make money. And if you're talking about like Mark was saying about the amount of enjoyment you get out of these things, and like you mentioned, the amount of activity time you spend on them, if you go into like, if you say you went into Tesco's and they had like a bag of peanuts and a bigger bag of peanuts, and it tells you how many grams, you know what I mean? It would be like 50p per 100 grams or something. If you could see our hobby and you could see like pounds and then the amount of hours you're going to get with it versus something like a video game, it's ridiculous. Because I mean, you can get Call of Duty, so the next Call of Duty comes out, you'll do the campaign in like 8 hours or something. Well, no, sorry, 8 hours, probably 4 hours. And then the rest of it's online stuff if you can be bothered and if your internet works. Whereas, this stuff, I mean, personally, painting for me takes ages because I'm just really like picky with things. But like you get so much time out of it, and that's before you even play with anything. So I think like realistically, it's not really expensive. I guess it's a expensive kind of to get set up initially, get all your paints and the glue and the scissors and the knives and God knows what else. But I mean, once you get going, I can buy like a box of 10 models and think, I'll probably get that done in about 8 months. So like realistically, it's the value for money it's not even something that crosses my head because I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah, and it's something that once it's done and complete, not only has it got that longevity, it's also personalised to you. So, for example, for that Call of Duty, your copy of Call of Duty is going to be the same as the millions of other people that own that. But that squad of Primaris Intercessors, it's the same box as everyone else has got, but you built yours in your way. You painted them your way. You play them in your way. They become very personal. Yeah. Which you don't get with other things.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean, when I started, it was primary.
Would you say it was Primaris school?
I just remember going around. I see what you did there. I just remember going around someone's house and like their older brother had this. I think it was like Tyranids, but a lot of Imperial Guard, and it was all these tanks. And even when I was like 10, 11 years old, I remember the names Lehman Russ and like Basilisk, and they were just like things that this kid would always talk about at school. And he started bringing in White Dwarf and stuff, and giving me old copies of it. And I just got really into staring at pictures. And that was back when, oh God, what was his name? Was it Dave or
Paul Sawyer?
Someone Sawyer.
Paul Sawyer.
He was a fat bloke. He was always like in brackets fat bloke and stuff. And they just had this kind of sense of humour that really appealed to me and still does. So I don't know if I'm immature or
he
it
was
just
hilarious.
a very well marketed sense of humour that they did. Yeah. And I think I just remember getting really into it, and like I could afford to get the White Dwarf when it came out, and like you'd get something cool free. I remember getting a Dark Eldar mini free with it and stuff, and then eventually one birthday I got the Third Ed Battle Force box, and I built most of it. And no, I think I built it all and painted it all awfully, apart from the Land Speeder, which I didn't even prime. I think I just gave it to Mark. And I remember this was bad, like to the point where I'd got the rattle can of Ultramarines blue, sprayed them in the blue, then sat there and painted over that with Ultramarines blue because I just didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Slathered.
And when I say painted over, I mean there was probably about there was like 3 brushfuls worth of paint in one brush stroke. So yeah, they were great. And then the flock that I did awfully, and it wasn't just on like the top of the base; it was all around the base rim, for added texture. Yeah, and then I think I just I played some like starter games and stuff at our local games workshop because we had this one guy there who was just awesome, and he was like really good with getting like the younger people well into it. Like I think Mark, didn't you say he got you guys like going out into the street outside the shop and doing like best war cry and stuff?
Yeah, man. And it's interesting that you and I had the same local games workshop and never met. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It is weird. And this guy was, I mean, I can imagine the shops nearby hated them because you've got all these like 12-year-old kids like running outside screaming at the top of their lungs. But it was a fun environment to be in. But then when I went to secondary school, I don't know, I just kind of didn't have the time, I guess, to get into it because obviously then you're sort of doing other stuff. But I always had like a passing interest still in the lore. I still kept up to date a bit with 40k lore, and then since social media has been a thing, I've always just been following stuff and getting the 40k memes and just finding it funny. And when Mark said, "You want to get back into this?" I was like, "Mate, don't even have to ask me. Let's do it." And since then, I can't consume enough of it. I really can't. Like, I know we've been saying some of the books and the audio dramas, you get hit and miss stuff, but it suddenly hit me last week that I am probably going to not live to have read all of it. There's going to be that much that I'm never going to have consumed it all. So I just love it. And like we said before on our podcast, like it's multifaceted, and it's such a good term because no matter where you are, you can do something that's 40k related. Even if it's like reading or playing like one of the semi-decent games on your phone or something, you always have that connection with it. And I think that is probably like, it's an ingenious bit of marketing maybe, but just because you can always have that connection, you never really that distance from it. Like when I wasn't buying it, I was still interested in the lore and stuff. So and like obviously we had some decent games come out, didn't we? Like that the Space Marine game that I never played, but I'm really envious of everyone who has played it. And yeah, I think my sort of starting point, I just, it wasn't as in depth as Mark's, I don't think, but I just still have really fond memories of, like you're a kid, you could afford to buy like White Dwarf and that was it. And I would just read it cover to cover over and over again. And I still remember all the artwork and everything. And it was just, it was a really fun time. And I still remember like one of the best things was when we got back into it was getting my first pot of plastic cement and having that smell in the house again.
I know exactly what you mean.
Man, it's nothing like it.
The first White Dwarf I bought when I got back into it was the one that had the Slaughter Priest on the front. I got that, and I got myself a polystyrene cement. And as I started gluing, I had the weirdest flashbacks. It's like hang on, it's just like some kind of trip that I'm going on now. It was just, it took me right back. It was the weirdest, but I felt so happy.
Is it the ventilation or is it the nostalgia?
And then next thing you know, you're
what's
just
going
cutting
on?
up tanks.
Yeah, and it was, and like you're saying, it is weird about the smell, isn't it? Because like when you got like a Codex, they had that fresh ink smell. And I remember when me and Mark went halves on Shadow Spear, and Mark, he really wanted to crack it open. I was like, you've got to wait until I come to your house. You can't open it. And he held off, and we opened it and both had a really good sniff of the box. It was so good. Oh, I don't regret that at all. I know that sounds dodgy, but
that big grey pile of plastic smell takes me back to that. It's the same feeling you get opening that Shadow Spear box as I did when I got, 5th edition Warhammer for my birthday with the Praetorians Lissaman. You take that lid off and just the smell of the books and it's a nostalgia trip, man. And I mean, I think we're in a position now where we can live out those childhood dreams of getting these armies and being able to play properly and have cool terrain that you'd only see in White Dwarf, but now you can buy them, and it's just great. And it's we've let it consume us, and in a good way. It's a good escapism. It's a good creative outlet. We just fallen back in love with it big time.
Oh,
what about you, Adam? How did you get started?
Wow, Hero Quest.
The Hero Quest. Fire of Wrath.
A broadsword.
Hero Quest and Space Crusade. That's how I got into it. It's because, as I say, I'm an old man. When I was really young, my one of my cousins was heavily into Warhammer. Oh my God! I went to my dad's middle of last year, beginning of last year, and went into the attic to see if any of the Skaven was still there, and I found tons, and I've stripped them all down, but I cannot face painting them again. It's thankfully it's not all of it. A lot of it seems to have vanished, but there's like old metal rat ogres and stuff that I've got, and as it's all stripped, and I'm looking at it, looking at the clan rats and the Skaven slaves in their units of 120, and I can't do it. I can't do this again. It makes me feel sad and sick.
Can't you just prime? Oh no, even priming them's going to be about a couple of £100, isn't it, to get enough primer? I was thinking just do everything in contrast, but just buy enough contrast to fill your sync up.
What I'm thinking about doing is I might get rid
of
the old metal ones. Just keep the Mordheim era monkey Skaven and just build from that. Because I mean, the Skaven slaves you can't really run anymore. So
I think it would be interesting to see if you have got enough time to do that, because I'm thinking you're doing your Fluffen project that is currently untitled, and you're doing the podcast, you're doing your video editing stuff, and
Small Child,
Skavens.
and my other podcast.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
and your full-time job. Yeah, all the adult responsibilities.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I've started getting interested in things like Warcry and the Inc. 28 stuff. I mean, one of my ambitions is to try and get a weekend sorted at some point where people just turn up with an Inc. 28 level team. So either using the Necromunda rules or the Kill Team rules, and just run a narrative campaign of like 20 players through a city. I've got it all worked out, and it would be fantastic. So you basically have 8 tables. Each of these tables is... So the outside tables are the outskirts of the city, and the further into the tables you get, there's more of an industrial built-up area. So you basically have a team. Your team has cards which you will draw throughout the battles and throughout the weekend, and that would be your narrative. So win or lose would change the narrative of your story, of what your team's doing, and change who you're going to fight next, and that type of thing. So it's all really mutable. And the idea is that everybody would be aiming to get to the center table in order to find out what's going on there. And throughout that, you'd have another person at the table who would be playing as the weapon defense systems or the I don't know, aliens that might be there, or traitor guard or whatever it would be. So you'd have 2, maybe 3 people at a table, plus the shall we say AI player, just changing everybody's story as you go along. And so you just get this big narrative rush all the way through the weekend. So all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And I think that'd be a fantastic way of spending a weekend. I am working on ways of getting it done.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like a lot of planning that needs to go into that.
Yeah.
And, like, considering it would just be over the 2 days, the amount of time planning is probably like surpassing that quite a lot.
It will be. I mean,
it sounds worth it.
Just getting the scenery is going to take best part of a year. So if the idea I'm currently at is if I can find a place to do it, and then work from there, then I will start putting feelers out for people to see if they would be interested in coming on board to do stuff with it. But as I say, I've always got like 6 or 7 plates spinning at any given time. It's ridiculous. It's an actual fucking problem, you know.
Yeah.
As long as they
never stop.
Then you're fine.
It never stops. I wish for silence.
That's one of the things with this hobby, getting back in as an adult with money. You tend to get more stuff that you can actually than you can build and deal with.
Absolutely.
So stuff like Kill Team is a godsend, isn't it? Because being able to actually get something and then be able to play it quite quickly is just awesome. And because I found the idea of having like 2,000 points of Marines to build and paint before I can do anything with them, it's a bit of a nightmare. So Kill Team and stuff, I'm all about it.
You know, I'd love to do it sort of alternating, so it'd be, you know, 1 year would be a Kill Team, next year would be Warhammer Skirmish, and just back and forward. Because those little games, you can play them in an hour. Yeah, compared to like as you say, 2,000 point 40k game or the same in AOS. You're there for the evening. Yeah, you need to have a full 5 hours or so to play it, which is great because you spend that time shouting it and giving abuse to your opponent.
Yeah, we found that we dived a bit too heavily into the games in terms of size when we first got back into it. To the point where now we've really dialed it back to basically playing nothing more than 1,000 points. So, but then we found that with 1,000 points, either in AOS or 40k, you still get plenty to play with. They're still good games.
Oh yeah,
and you can paint. You know, 1,000 point army is literally half of a 2,000 point game. So it really works, and you still get enough. You still can have tanks. You still can get dreads in. You still can have hordes of troops if you want to, and you come away from the table without a headache.
Exactly.
So we're really into those up to 1,000 point games and things like Kill Team and stuff. I think they're amazing for the, if you've got when you're working, you've got maybe a Saturday, you might not be able to commit the whole Saturday. If you can say, right, we've got about from 12 to about 5 where we can smash out a game, then those you could even get 2 in if you're quick, and because you might not get to play for another month. So that, games like Kill Team, you could in 5 hours you could play 5 games. Like you could really hammer it in that time, and then you feel like you've got your fill. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And if you got that kind of 5 hours to play something like Kill Team or Necromunda, then you can get a narrative campaign in there.
Sure.
It means something towards it. I mean, just before my son was born last year, I've been playing against my wife's uncle, a guy called Tom. Hi, Tom. Because he got into it about 2 years ago for the first time ever in his life. He came and asked about it, so I thought, right, well, we'll just set up some regular games. And we ended up just playing Skirmish, just a load of AOS Skirmish, just because you can get the games out faster and you can get the mechanics down a lot easier. The idea was we were going to start Skirmish and just build up to bigger ones, but we played a couple of bigger ones and then went back to Skirmish. And what we ended up doing was just playing a load of really fun narrative games where we would start adding things in, like that mountain there. If you get to the top of it, you can start casting a 2d6 strength spell.
Yeah.
So you're on the top of there, you're just firing lightning down at everyone like a vengeful god. So you just became like, try to block people off and get to the mountain.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
And you can, because you've got a smaller amount of models, you can throw that in without it being too much of a rules headache.
Yeah.
And and also you have that thing where if you play a small game, and one of you gets like the dice aren't in your favourite, and you just get completely crushed. Can you imagine if you played a 2,000 point game and you just got utterly wiped out and had no time to do another one?
Yeah, you just get real despondent. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, they're great ideas.
Mm-hmm. I love skirmish games. So much fun. I also really love having a full day's worth of like huge army games as well. But I think those days might be done with.
Yeah, and I think I would enjoy them as well. But no offense to Jackson at all. But if we was to do a 2,000 point game, I think I'd have to sort of help so much and sort of support with the rules with him that I don't think we'd enjoy it as much.
No, definitely, and it probably adds on like
There's
so
a
many.
third of the time, doesn't it? There's so many rules that I haven't even considered. I just turn up with
Yeah.
the models. I'm like, this looks good. Right, what's the most like cinematic thing I can do with them that would be cool? And Mark has to go. Do you even know what dice you're rolling? Oh god, sorry. But yeah, no offense taken, man. Like I'm fully on board with you. I think the more I play, like the better I get with the rules. But then obviously at the moment,
No, that's true,
Like,
and I
I can't
think
even in the same room as
we're
you.
going to get really
So-
heavily into, when we're allowed to see each other, into playing like 500 point games to get ourselves back up to speed,
Yeah.
and then maybe up to 1,000, and then
yeah,
I was joking really, but Jackson is getting the rules, but it's a practice thing, isn't it? And playing 2,000 point games isn't going to help him, but playing small skirmish games really will help.
yeah. Yeah, because then you keep chucking the turn back to me, don't you? Whereas when you're playing 2,000 points, it's like, okay, you do stuff for half an hour and I do a couple of like save rolls, and that's about it. There's not so much, especially with like deployment and tactics and stuff. You're not involved enough in it consistently, I guess is what I'm trying to go for there. Yeah, that sounds better, doesn't it? But yeah, I don't know. I just
Yeah,
like
that's
playing
it,
games
isn't
with
it?
little toy soldiers.
I mean, it's one of the
Yeah,
reasons I like
good
AOS
times,
so
man.
much as a system. Well, more so now than when it first started, because when it first started, it had a couple of janks to it that needed to be ironed out. Is that the way that a lot of it happens is you get to your turn again really quickly.
Yes.
So you kind of speed through and you're like, oh, it's me again. Right, what am I doing? Excellent. Because me and my brother, when we first started playing AOS, we had a couple of games to get into it, to get our heads around it. And we started off really small and just built up. But because we did that, there were certain things that happened in the games that really needed to be just reminded myself of. So my Orc shaman, he kept using the Foot of Gork and absolutely smashed my brother's Nurgle champion. Like, he did it enough times in a single turn to just kill him outright. So now I had to go in and paint loads of little feet onto his robes, because he's now the Foot Smasher.
And it allows you to forge that narrative.
Absolutely. My Auric war boss, he's driving. Yeah, all right. He's riding a Stonehorn because he murdered a Auric champion on a Stonehorn. So in my mind, right, he's nicked it. He's off with it. He's now got a falcon on his arm because he killed a Stormcast champion who had I can't remember the names of them. The Stormcast names vanish in my brain. You know, the one that has the bird with him.
Lord Aquila,
Possibly.
is it one of the guys with the crossbows?
Yeah.
Oh, I know I don't know. I can envision the models. They got great big long bows, and the champion's got a bird.
So what the Auric war boss mega boss rules is that if you kill a champion, your stats increase. So he just goes from champion to champion to champion, just wiping them out whilst riding a Stonehorn.
That's great, man.
So now he's got a falcon because he killed it and stole his bird. See, the more that this character does, the more I'm adding to the miniature, just because it's so much fun to do so. And that's where I think the strength of skirmish games comes in, where you can get that narrative, which then feeds the hobby.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like because I think we're going to obviously saying we're going to do some small 40k games. We're also going to for Age of Sigmar I'll be doing some Path to Glory.
Good man.
Because it might look a bit unbalanced a little bit, but I mean that's not the point.
That's so much fun though.
Exactly, and like you build your warband up, you build those stories, you play the cool scenarios, and I think the rules at AOS, I think the game is better than 40k.
I would agree.
I mean, I love playing 40k because it's 40k and the setting is, you can't get better than that setting and the aesthetics, but the gameplay for AOS is, in my mind, better. So I'm really looking forward to playing some Path to Glory.
What races are you going to go for?
Well, I've got 3 I can choose from. I've got Khorne, Blades of Khorne, like the mortal ones.
Yep.
I've got a warband ready for them. I've got Slaves to Darkness is my other one. I've got prepped, and they're both painted and ready to go.
Yeah.
And I have got a Stormcast army that I could paint up for Path to Glory, but I think I'm going to go for the Chaos, and I think I'm going to start with the Khorne Bloodbound because Jackson's doing Bone Reapers, and we think there's a good narrative crossover because the Bone Reapers want the tithe, but the Khorne want the skulls. So we want the skulls, so do they. There's clearly a conflict of interest, so I think that's where we're going for it. Well, we're going to find out.
Who wants the skulls more?
If we ever get to play.
What you could do, right?
Yes, we are.
This is how my brain works. What you could do is you could have a little village or a couple of houses in the centre of the board, right?
Yeah.
And in that, you could get a couple of villages of some description. And you could have it so you get victory points if you can kidnap the people in order to get the bones.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a full fight happening as well, but you could also try to get the people to get the extra bones.
Yeah.
The more bones you get, the more points you have.
Man, I'm into it.
This is why I love playing small games, because you can do mad shit like that.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to have to close up shortly, but I'll just quickly go through a little anecdote for you. So my greenskin army is Orruk, some Savage Orcs, and some greenskin, some grots, goblins, right? Half of my army is always going to be, rules-wise, they're squigs, but I have just built tons and tons of animals to go in front of my army. So whenever you fight my Oryx, what you have is a meat shield of pigs and squigs and badgers to get through first.
Badgers?
Oh yeah, I've got all sorts of animals that I've got on bases. They all just use squig rules, and they're all either hand sculpted or customized.
Yeah.
So they use GW parts, so they're legal, and it means that no one can charge my Oryx until they're ready to get in combat, because there's just this shield of animals that my Oryx have pushed out of the forests in front of them.
Man, don't tell PETA.
Oh, they made enough of a thing about Space Wolves wearing fur. So.
Yeah. Oh, I should have said Peter, actually, shouldn't I? God, I think that's the first time I've ever said PETA, and I can't believe I did it on a podcast which is going to be recorded and kept for all time.
Yes, I'm going to use it as blackmail material. I'll just cut it out and just send you messages. I need 500 pennies. Go on.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm glad you've done that, man. I'm all about the squigs. Like, that's the only reason I got that Zarbag Skits thing, is just because I wanted to try painting a couple of them. That kind of quirkiness, I liked it in the older 40k, but where the more modern stuff is getting a little bit darker, I like it. Nurglings I'm okay with, but some of the more cranky orc stuff's a little bit too much for me sometimes. But when it comes to like AOS and stuff, where you've got the squig herder and everything, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah.
Oh, one of my ambitions is to own every squig miniature that's ever been produced. By that I mean one of each miniature, not every squig miniature that's ever been produced. As in everyone that give me your squigs. It's so
I know what you mean.
One of each mold. I need the big Forge World ones, and I need a old Tyrannid one. What else? There's another one I'm missing. I've probably got about 5 molds I need to get still. Because I've even got the Squig Hound from Warhammer Quest now, which has always been a grail of mine.
Nice.
Wait. I love squigs. It's just one of those things, isn't it? You kind of look at stuff and just go, you know what would be really cool? To grab some of that. It's like, I've got 2 copies of Hero Quest, and within the Advanced Quest version, I've got old Battle Masters miniatures in there to use as chieftains and special characters. So, because they're the same sculpts, they're the same sculptors, same style, so it means that you've got all this wonderful variety. And now you've done that. What am I going to do next? You know what would be good? Some Space Crusade Dreadnoughts. What? No, don't do that. Too late. I've ordered them.
Oh, God. I know what you mean. Sometimes I've done that so many times. I've seen things and thought, I'll get that. But then, unlike you, I don't actually build it. I've got quite a few boxes that are just sat there unbuilt, and I want to do something with them, but I just don't have time. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
That's the problem.
Oh man, sorry. I know you said you wanted to wrap up soon, but I just wanted to say I really got into the. Oh God, what's the series you've done? You uploaded a video the other day. The Suffer Not the Alien to Live one on the.
Oh yeah, Suffer Not the Alien to Live. Yeah.
What is your like? I was saying about this earlier. Like a lot of fan done content has that kind of conviction to it. Have you got like a character you do for the voice on that one, or is it just you turned up to 10?
Couple.
Because
I've got a couple of different ways of doing it. So it is me turned up to the 10 on a few of them. But whenever I start, like the Necromunda series I did, one of the things I like to do is look at what I'm talking about, think about who would be talking about it, and be that, go for that character. So like the Slumps episode, I was thinking of like this professor who was looking down his nose at it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't ever have to be named, doesn't even ever have to be explained, but it gives you the basis of the voice, the idea of the hive gangers as they sit down there, being all hive gangy. Yeah, it's enough to give it a bit of a personality. So it's not just that dry. In the year 1473, the emperor came along and he said, "All right, everyone, I'm the emperor." All right, which. I don't want to pull anybody down, because I think anybody who goes out to do stuff for YouTube should be commended, because it's really difficult to get yourself out there and do that type of thing.
It takes a lot of time.
It does. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. That's even before you sit down to record. You've got to write stuff. You've got to think about stuff. You've got to build it all together. But you do find that a lot can be quite dry when it's discussing that lore. And my ambition is to always try and do the lore stuff in character, in fiction, because I think you get a little bit more flavour to it that way.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think it's you and Oculus Imperia who both do those kind of character-led things.
Oh wow!
And I get really into it, man.
Didn't expect to be in the same sentence as him.
Oh, you are, man. What are you talking about? You're the voice of Revelation. Man,
which is based on John Rhys Davis, by the way.
Man, I really like that. I can't say enough good things about that Last Church narration. And I'll bring it up anytime I can, but it's just so good, mate. I love it. It's really weird for me to be on a podcast talking to you, like when I think it was like a year ago when I first heard that, and you were just this like YouTube person in the distance who I never thought I'd be chatting with on a podcast, and here we are. But yeah, I love it, especially the Zotes one you did, because it's just that like kind of I don't want to say insane, but just that very like it's that aggressive kind of voice you do, because it's the guy talking about like these alien races that not a fan of, and there's that one line in it where you said I'm not going to try and do the voice because I'll fail, but where you said it was something like we wish to regale you with a tale of hope. The utter extinction of Zote kind. And it was like, that's so grimdark, isn't it? Here's our tale of hope. It's about making like this species of aliens completely extinct. Mm-hmm. Lovely.
So the character for that one you might like is the idea of this like old general who bionic arm, his legs are completely gone, and he's just basically going around on like a treaded chair. Yeah. And that's the image. I've got quite a fat, gone to seed type character. And I wish to tell you a tale of hope, the death of the Zote race. Yeah, so you've got this just horribly beast character that just hates everything.
Man, how do you just turn that voice on like that? I'd have to spend ages getting to that point. Like, I'm impressed. Like, it was just straight away.
It's just
because you know the character in your head, I suppose. So you know.
Because all the characters that I do for the videos, they're all in here, which makes me sound like I'm going insane. I've got the list of how to get to that voice really quickly. Because I might need to like swap in and out from different voices, doing different things. One of my favorite ones to do, and then we'll have to finish, is the Heath Ledger Joker doing the Joker's soliloquy from the Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, because it scared the hell out of one of my friends once, where he was talking about how the Heath Ledger voice really freaked him out, and I said, "Really? Why is that? Is it because it's all along the lines of, 'What's the matter, Bats? No, will he come back? No threats? Then I'll provide the narration. I'll begin with how I began to peel back the layers of the boy's mind. Oh, you would have been scared to see him struggle. But all too soon, the shocks and the serums began to take their hold, and he began to tell me such secrets that are mine alone to know. Bruce.' And his first reaction was to go, 'Never do that again.'"
Man, have you got like a background in it then, in voice acting or anything, or are you just like self-trained and
just self-trained? It's something I've been interested. I've done a lot of stage stuff. I've played Puck twice. So there's something fun. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, as these visions did appear. But it only took about 6-7 years ago I got interested in doing voice work, and I've just kind of been building that up and trying to teach myself how to do it, with the sole intention of quitting my day job and hopefully doing it one day. But we'll see.
Well, you definitely got the talent for it, man. It sounds really good. Really convincing.
Thank you. It's weird. I'm just a naturally theatrical guy. I think it's just hardwired into me. I like to entertain, and I like to make people smile, or
creep your friends
scare
out.
the shit out of them. Yeah. It's one of the reasons I like doing the cold opens for this show. It's throwing something out there and just trying to.
That really got me today, because when you said what's your favourite film, I couldn't have picked a worse one to give you.
Travis.
It was a godsend that Mark said Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so. What we'll do is that we shall say good night and a thank you to Jackson and to Mark. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys today. It's been a really nice way of spending a Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, man.
Do you guys want to quickly just tell people where they can find you, so they can go along, get your podcast and listen to some good stuff?
Yeah, you go for it, Jackson.
We're not prepared for that. Well, I mean, if you want to find us, so we're Sanction Extremis or Extremis Podcast on any podcast app that you can find. I mean, Apple, Spotify, everything. I'm at Jackson Extremis on Twitter, because that's a thing that I use now. We've got a Facebook, which is Sanction Extremis Podcast, and we don't really use that, but it's there. And we're also Sanction Extremis Podcast on Instagram, which Mark has now taken the helm of and is being updated daily, which was what would you say, an unknown quantity of posts, I suppose.
Well, no, I do daily ones, and I just post whatever the fuck I like, to be honest.
Yeah, even if it's like memes and stuff, but you always pick the really good ones. So, but yeah, it was a hereto unknown amount of Instagram posting, because I used to do like an Instagram post like once a month. And yeah, we do hope to get another episode out soon. We did have some people message us like, are you still doing them? But it's like, well, we are, but trying to get together in the same place, it's just been impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how it's going to work doing it when we're not in the same room together, because we don't really, it's not scripted. Like, we'll have some notes and stuff, but we don't run to a strict script, which is why they end up being like 3 hours long. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely doing more of them. We've got plans for the next one, which is going to be, our focus is definitely going to be Imperial Guard.
Yes.
We're really looking forward to that. It's just, getting it done. But we are still going, definitely. And yeah, well, we'd love to hear from people. And thanks again for having us on, mate.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. In that case, then, I'm going to end the episode with this following quote from the 40k Tremors movie. I think I have a plan. Why don't we throw a goddamn exterminator's bomb the way we want to go, and when it goes off, we run like goddamn bastards. Bye!
Bye.
They are my space marines, and they shall know no fear. Initiate Sanction Extremis.